you so much. So glad to be back with all of you guys again. Did you learn something last night?
Yes.
It's great to hear. Great to hear. Well, tonight is going to be no different. You're going to learn some more valuable information tonight, and I'm excited about the topic that we are going to be talking about. As was stated already, tonight's topic that we are going to be dealing with is the subject of when hearts attack. Now, you're going to see why this particular topic is an extremely important topic that we're going to deal with tonight when we begin to start to actually look at some of the statistics and the way that heart disease is affecting millions of Americans. But let's continue on. We're going to reintroduce some things for those who are just tuning in late. We're going to reintroduce some of the information that we looked at yesterday. The From Sickness to Health seminar is based on a TV show with the same name. And in this show, you have two characters. You have the blue guy on the left, whose name is Sickness. And he is indicative of that little voice in your head that is always trying to get you to eat, to drink, and to do things that are not the best for your health. The guy, on the other hand, on the right-hand side, is the saner conscience. It's that, the conscience, that part of your mind that is always trying to tell you to do things that are much better for your health. As we spoke last night, there is a board of advisors that works with the organization and helps to keep everything copacetic as it relates to the science information. And these aren't the only doctors, but there are many other doctors, as I mentioned last night, that are on a crusade seeking to help America better their health. But then we discussed a very important concept, an extremely important concept, and that is learning to be the CEO of your what? Learning to be the CEO of your own health. And what is a CEO? Can we bring the mic up just a little bit? It sounds a little low. But what is a CEO? We discussed this yesterday.
Chief Executive Officer.
Chief Executive Officer. And what is a CEO's duty?
To govern or manage everything.
To govern or manage an organization, right? He is the chief decision maker. And as we discussed last night, it is important if we have doctors, if we have nutritionists, if we have dietitians, if we even have access to those things, it is important that we speak with them. But at the end of the day, there's a little black knob on the wall. I think that may be it. I'm not. There we go. But as was stated, at the end of the day, whether we have doctors, whether we have dietitians, the most important thing that we can do is make decisions that will be the best for our health. And so learning to be the CEO of our own health is an extremely important thing. And the first thing that we're going to look at, last night we looked at a CEO success habit. We're going to look at a new one tonight that I want you to take into consideration. So the new CEO success hack that we're going to talk about tonight, still built on that same format of the hook, the identity, something that you do, and then in the case that you don't do that you were supposed to do, then you will do something in its place to make sure that you stay on track. So one of the CEO success hacks that we're going to discuss this evening is that of accountability. Say that word with me, accountability. Now, accountability works when someone is expecting for you to check in with them. And the reason why that is important is because, you see, again, we spoke yesterday that when you have something as a part of your identity, you are more likely to do it because our actions flow out of who we are. Isn't that true? Most certainly. And so here's something that you can do. If you are seeking to be a person that was accountable, one of the things that you would want to do is to establish the identity that you are a person that wants to be held accountable. So one of the things that you can do is you can write down this statement and read it to yourself every morning, and the statement would say something like this: I am the kind of person who follows through because my word is my reputation. I want you to say that with me. I am the kind of person because my word is my what? Is my reputation. Now, if that's something you were to say to yourself over and over, there's a proverb in the scripture I mentioned last night, Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 7, that says, as a man in his so there we go. And so there is power, there is life and death in the power of the tongue. When we can learn to speak life over ourselves over and over again, eventually those words that we speak will become a part of our identity. And so in this case, moving on to the do part, what you would do if you were trying to establish a new habit in your life is you would find a accountability partner who you, upon agreed upon time, would message at least once on a weekly basis to notify them whether or not you were able to accomplish the habit that you said that you wanted to accomplish. So let's give an example of that. Let's say, like the example I gave last night, beginning to walk for 10 minutes. Let's say that's a habit that you want to keep, and you want a trusted friend, one that is truly going to hold you accountable, and you would let that individual know, hey, I want to begin to start to walk 10 minutes a day, and I'm going to call you at the end of every week on Friday at 3 p.m., right? Or finding a time that works for both of you guys, because maybe the person gets off at 5 or 6. You find a time that's appropriate for both of you. You let them know that you will be texting them at the same time every week to notify them whether or not you were able to keep your habit of walking 10 minutes a day. And then you want to plan for setbacks, the if-then statement. Let's say for whatever reason you try to get a hold of your accountability partner and you can't reach him. Well, contingencies are a very good thing. Backup plans are a very good thing. So you want to have a second accountability partner that you would let them know in the event that the first one is not available, you would be texting them to notify them whether or not you kept up with your habit. And when you do this, you begin to have the realization that your accountability partner is going to hold you accountable. And therefore, that can become, especially if you have a good friend that's not a drill sergeant, but somebody that will lovingly hold you accountable, that's somebody that can actually help you in the process. And research has actually shown that people do improve their health when they have a support system. And that's exactly what the accountability partner and the structure is all about. Now, let's move on, and we are going to take a look at our first video of the night.
Hello and welcome to the program. This is From Sickness to Health. I'm your host, Rico Hill, and this is the blue guy, Sickness himself. And today, we have a fascinating program for you, don't we?
Yeah, I guess so.
You all right?
I'm a little disappointed.
In me, the program, the topic, what?
No, my heart. It attacked me last night, out of nowhere, after all I've done for it.
You mean you had a heart attack?
No, I did not have a heart attack. My heart attacked me.
Let me get this straight. Your heart attacked you.
Yeah, can you believe it?
No, I can't believe it.
Well, there I was, sitting on the couch, enjoying some delicious high-fat ice cream with corn. Anyway, out of nowhere, this sharp pain in my chest like a knife. How would you like it if someone put a knife in your chest?
Well, I probably wouldn't like it, but that's not the point. The point is that your heart is just responding to all the unhealthy foods you've been eating.
Unhealthy foods? I'm insulted. Name some.
Let's see, fried bacon, fried chicken, fried fish, cupcakes, fried ice cream, pizza, cheese pizza, meat lovers pizza. What else?
No. Rico, this isn't helping. Name some unhealthy foods.
Anyway, that's probably why your heart attacked you.
Yeah, that's right. My heart attacked me. Make the record straight. My heart attacked me. Ungrateful heart.
So you're mad at your heart.
Yes, I'm mad at my heart. I have taken care of this thing. Hello, heart attack hotline? Yes, I'd like to report a vicious attack. Go. Hey, did you know that cardiac arrest and heart attacks are the leading cause of death in the United States this year? That's 1 in 4 people that's gonna die of cardiac arrest. Wow, big business. Take this guy, for example. I mean, look at him. Fatty foods, lack of exercise, sugary drinks, watching TV all day, late night eating. He's just 35 years old. But little does he know that age is nothing but a number. Boy, he has no idea what's gonna hit him. Hey buddy, want me to order another meaty extra cheese pizza? I'm paying.
Hey, sure.
All right. He thinks I'm paying, but in the long run, he'll be the one paying. Back to you, Rico.
You know, one of the things that, it's funny, but one of the things that you'll notice with this video is that sometimes we don't realize that when sickness comes, we may blame it on everything but the cause. So sometimes one of the favorite ones that people like to blame it on is, well, my mama had diabetes, so it's in my genetics, so I'm gonna have diabetes too, right? And we can do the same thing with just different ailments that are out there. But the truth is that the science, well, don't get me wrong, genetics are an important thing. But it's like we looked at that statement yesterday. Genetics may load the gun, but what is it that pulls the trigger? Lifestyle pulls the trigger. And it's been shown in the study of epigenetics, which is that line of scientific research that deals with how genes express themselves. They have shown that it is lifestyle factors, environmental factors that ultimately turn genes on and turn genes off. And so, yes, you may have a genetic predisposition to certain type of ailments, but if you have the same lifestyle as those you inherited your genetics from, guess what? You're going to get more of the same. And so that's something that that a good CEO wants to keep in mind. Yes, you may have certain genetic factors that can contribute to ill health, but ultimately it is going to be your lifestyle that determines whether or not it comes, or if sickness does come, how severe it is. Make sense? All right, let's continue on.
Hello, and welcome to...
We watched this one already. Let's move to some facts about the human heart. Now, I want you to consider some of these facts. Every day, your heart beats 100,000 times, sending 20,000 gallons of blood through your entire body. Every day, the heart creates enough energy to drive a truck 20 miles. In a lifetime, that is the equivalent to driving to the moon and back. Can you imagine that? Just how much energy output that your heart gives. Number 3, the blood pumped by the heart travels around 12,000 miles through the body every day, which is 4 times the width of the United States from coast to coast. Human heart fact number 4. If you were to grab a tennis ball and squeeze it tightly, that's how hard the beating heart works to pump blood around your body. The heart is a magnificent created design. And when treated the right way, it will do its job well. That's one of the things that you need to realize as a good CEO, is that every CEO over an organization, he has employees that work for him, doesn't he? What are the employees that work for you to keep life sustained? Talk to me. What are some of the employees that work for you? Say it again.
Heart, lungs.
The heart, the lungs, what else? Your brain. I heard kidneys. What else? your liver, your muscles. These are all employees that work for you. And every good CEO, if their company is going to be a successful one, they need to make sure that their employees have every resource that they need in order to do their job effectively. Does that make sense? That is another CEO success habit that I want you to consider. Now, let's look at some of the leading causes of death in the United States. If you were to look at the leading cause of death in the United States, what do you find?
Heart disease.
Heart disease, after which comes what? Cancer. Now, that is roughly almost 700,000 people every year. That's just 300,000 shy of 1 million that die every single year from heart disease. Is that a pretty serious disease? It's a pretty serious one.
That's in the United States.
Yeah, that's just in the United States. I got another statistic that we're going to look at later that's going to talk how many people it affects in the world. And cancer follows secondly after that with just a little over 600,000. So that's one of the reasons why we're discussing this evening, because it's an important topic. And this number could be drastically higher. Now, again, I said it last night, and it bears repeating. Lifestyle medicine is the best. Lifestyle medicine is the what? Best. But in the case that a person, because you didn't gain those habits overnight, did you? And if you didn't gain them overnight, it's going to take a little while to start to work through developing healthier habits. And that's where I think modern medicine has its place. You don't want to be on medication for the rest of your life if you don't have to be. But if you are prone to having a heart attack and they put in a stent while you are trying to build healthier habits, that can be life-saving. But the thing that you really want to focus on is lifestyle what? Lifestyle changes or lifestyle medicine, because those changes in your lifestyle will be like medicine to your system. Let's look at some heart disease stats right here in Troup County. Now, right here in Troup County, heart disease prevalence. 6.2% of adults in Troup County have been diagnosed with heart disease, which is near the Georgia average. Number 2, physical inactivity. 66% of adults report no leisure time, physical activity. Another strong cardiovascular risk, which is the lack of exercise, which we're going to talk about because it's one of the laws of health. Another stat we want to take a look at. Smoking. 6.4% of adults are smokers right here in Troup County. 16.4% of adults are smokers, further increasing heart disease risk. In rural parts of Georgia, including counties like Troup, 44.1% of adults have hypertension or high blood pressure. And the last stat we'll look at, cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in Georgia, responsible for more than 28,000 deaths annually, about 1 in 3 deaths statewide. Many of these deaths are what?
Premature. Preventable.
What's the word premature mean?
Before time.
Before time. Now, there's this saying sometimes that people comfort themselves with. And that is that, it was just his. But is that always true?
No.
That isn't always true. Now, hey, when a person is 110 years old and they die, maybe you can say it was just their. But if a person is 40 years old and they die from a heart attack, was it really their time? No. Didn't need to be. Didn't have to be. And that's the reason why heart disease is something that is a preventable disease. And I'm going to show you that from science tonight. And these are where those citations for the previous screen came from. Now, I want to share something interesting with you. In the Bible, in the book of Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26, you find God making a promise to Israel. And that promise was that if the children of Israel would obey God's voice, that they would keep the laws that he had given them, which was to maintain their health. He said, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put upon the Egyptians. Now, there is a very interesting line of research where they've actually studied the diseases that Egyptians had by actually studying the mummies that they have found in tombs. And you'll find it very interesting on the very next slide. What are some of the diseases that the Egyptians were struggling with that God said he did not want for his people to suffer from? Let's take a look. What's the first one you see on there? Did you know that? That the Egyptians struggled with heart disease. Another one that they struggled with? Diabetes. What's another one?
Cancer.
What's another one? What's another one? What's another one? Stroke. What's another one? Edema. What's another one? Tuberculosis and arthritis. And because, Egyptians had this belief in the afterlife that, they would have servants and, all of these different things. What they oftentimes did is when they buried, either the pharaohs or high-ranking officials in the Egyptian nation, they would oftentimes bury them with the things that they thought they would use in the afterlife. So they would bury them sometimes with their wives, with dogs, and also food. And so they were actually able to take a look at the food that the Egyptians ate. And would you not believe that the food that the Egyptians ate is very similar to what we eat right here in the United States?
I've often heard of these diseases being called diseases of opulence.
Yes, or the diseases of affluence, most certainly. That is very true. So what they found with the Egyptians is that they ate diets that were high in refined foods, high in sugars, high in fats, and they led a very sedentary lifestyle. Sound familiar? I wonder why. America may be struggling from the same diseases of the Egyptians, which was not God's desire for his people. And so, notice what this cardiologist had to say. Heart disease has been stalking mankind for over 4,000 years all over the globe, said Dr. Randall Thompson, a cardiologist at St. Luke's Mid-America Heart Institute in Kansas City, and the paper's lead author. For over 4,000 years. And it is, again, we looked at it. People often die prematurely and from something that is highly preventable. Another statement here. Even without modern temptations, speaking about the Egyptians, even without modern temptations like fast food or cigarettes, people had clogged arteries some 4,000 years ago, according to the biggest ever hunt for the condition in mummies. Even though they didn't have cigarettes, even though they didn't have many of our modern conveniences, they still had clogged arteries just like us, partly because we are repeating the same lifestyle habits that they had. Now let's take a look at this next video.
Hey, did you know that cardiac arrest?
Actually, that isn't the one we were looking for. We'll bypass that one. So we're going to look at the CEOs. It's always good as a CEO to, if you're going to do your job the best, there's certain information that you need to have access to. You need to educate yourself on certain things so that all of your decisions flow from that intelligence that you have gained from studying so that you are making the best possible decisions. And so we looked last night Disease is a disorder of a structure or function in a human, animal, or plant, one that produces specific signs or symptoms, or that affects different, whether it's organs or systems of the body. But this is the CEO's definition of disease that we looked at last night and we'll look at again. Disease, I want you to say this with me. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of what?
Health.
And we looked at this last night, that laws govern the entire universe. And just like you have gravity and the law of thermodynamics and the list goes on and on, there are laws that govern our health. And the better that we live in harmony with them, the better will our health be. But when those laws of health are violated, sickness will be the result. And so let's take a look at the standard American diet, aka the SAD diet. Now, if you'll look at the standard American diet, we get more than half of the food that we eat from what? Processed food. What are processed foods? Chips, cookies, brownies. Well, let's say depending on the kind of brownie you got. But if it's one of them store-bought ones, Hostess, Twinkies, right? These things that people love to eat, and more than 50% of the food that most people eat come from processed foods. Now, there are a lot of different reasons for that. A lot of different reasons, which we can't all touch on tonight. Sometimes for some people, beyond just the desired of the way that these foods are manufactured, are literally, if I had the time, there's another health series that I have that I teach. And one of the videos in that health series, there is a scientist that is breaking down why American food is so addictive. And what he discusses in this video is that literally food companies pay for scientists to actually make the foods that we eat so addictive that it's actually hard to give them up. They actually have brought psychologists onto their staff with scientists to understand what are the right combinations of fats and sugars and salt that would make the foods that we eat absolutely irresistible. And so that's one of the things that people are contending with. And then, of course, there are some places of the world where there are food deserts. And where there are food deserts, a lot of people don't have access to fresh fruits and fresh veggies. And that can be another reason why a lot of people eat processed foods, because the closest grocery store to them is a liquor store or a gas station. And that's all that they have access to. And so, but then you also see that 32% of the standard American diet is actually animal products. And only 11% are vegetables, fruits, nuts, and beans. And then 4% whole nut grains. Now, what are we talking about again tonight? What's the topic? When hearts attack. Now, there are different things that lead to heart attacks. And one of those things is cholesterol. Now, I want you to look at the top food sources of cholesterol, and we'll see whether or not there could be something maybe in our diets that could be affecting us in a negative way. So if you look at everything that is in the red box, these are the top 5 sources of cholesterol. So the number one ranked is eggs and eggs mixed dishes. That's where we get the majority of our cholesterol from. Which, by the way, I want to say, did you know that our bodies make cholesterol? Our bodies make cholesterol. Our bodies actually do not need they don't need the bad outside cholesterol that we give to it, because our bodies actually produce cholesterol. So what ends up happening is we end up eating too much excess cholesterol, and you're going to find out in a video that we're going to look at in a moment why that's a bad thing. And then, of course, some of the other sources that we get a lot of cholesterol from chicken, beef, burgers, and cheese. These are the top sources where we get cholesterol from. Now, top sources of cholesterol that raises our fat levels. Again, regular cheese, dairy desserts, pizza, chicken mixed dishes, and grain-based desserts. Now, I want you to watch this video, and we're going to learn a few things as we watch it together.
Humanity's diet is the single leading cause of death, exacting an even greater health burden than smoking. This makes sense, since we are what we eat, literally, physically. If we continue to rebuild our body every day with shoddy materials, there's no wonder we run into trouble. For example, not eating enough fruits and vegetables is blamed for millions of deaths every year. We should eat fruits and vegetables as if our lives depended on it, because in a way it appears they do. Most Americans may be suffering from diet-related diseases, yet most are not being educated about nutrition from their doctors. Maybe that's actually a good thing, given how little doctors tend to know about nutrition? Physicians are typically seen as trustworthy sources of nutrition by the general public. But in a head-to-head test of nutrition knowledge, doctors versus patients, though physicians should be more knowledgeable about nutrition than their patients, these results suggest that this is not necessarily true. And we all know how little the general public knows about nutrition. The American diet is the #1 cause of death in the United States, yet doctors average less than 20 hours of nutrition training, and that's mostly like biochemistry of vitamins. The amount of clinical nutrition training they may get is less than 5 hours. Take cardiology, for example. Dr. Ornish's landmark lifestyle heart trial asked the question, can lifestyle changes reverse coronary artery disease? And the answer was a resounding yes. If just that tidbit alone were understood and internalized by internists, think how many lives could be saved from our leading cause of death and disability. Yet 90% of surveyed cardiologists report receiving little or no nutrition education during their cardiology training. There appears to be insufficient nutrition training and medical training across the board, a global deficiency. The low-hanging fruit in medicine remains on the vine. And for those doctors who say they don't have time, physicians don't need to do their own diet counseling any more than they need to perform their own x-rays or blood draws. But they must recognize the role nutrition plays in disease, communicate it clearly to patients, and refer the patient appropriately. The diet that Dr. Ornish used to help reverse the progression of heart disease was whole food plant-based nutrition, a diet primarily but not exclusively composed of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. Why isn't there more widespread acknowledgement of the power of plants in the medical community? One potential reason is that the science has yet to make its way into the teaching materials. Yes, Dr. Ornish made this discovery decades ago, but sometimes it can take decades for medical practice to catch up, even when millions of lives are at stake. Nowadays, it would be unthinkable not to address patients smoking, because it's just been incorporated in the standard of care. The evidence on nutrition has yet to be similarly lionized, but this should not prevent thoughtful and caring clinicians from applying safe and effective nutritional interventions that are not ahead of the evidence, but only ahead of the published guidelines. Ignorance of nutrition is no longer defensible. There are a growing number of resources for those who missed out in med school. Doctors can get board certified in lifestyle medicine. There are some great websites out there, like PCRM's Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. More great websites? Yes, it would be nice not to be a hypocrite and eat more healthfully yourself, rather than just learning about healthier diets, but that shouldn't stop anyone from recommending it, if only because it is the only diet that has ever been shown to reverse the progression of the #1 killer of men and women, so people should not be denied such knowledge.
So if you're a person, if you're going to be one of those CEOs that educates yourself with information that allows you to make an impact in your life, the video that we just got finished watching comes from Dr. Michael Greger. How many of you have ever heard that name before, Dr. Michael Greger? He actually has a website called nutritionfacts.org, where he simplifies the scientific research and makes it much simpler for those of us who did not go to medical school. And in this video, there was a lot of key points that he mentioned, but one of the key points that he mentions in this video is that in a scientific study, when doctors went head to head with their patients and they were being tested on nutritional knowledge, the doctors were not reliably outperforming the patients. Did you hear that? When they were testing the knowledge of the doctor related to nutrition and testing the patient's knowledge related to nutrition, the doctor was not reliably outperforming the patient's knowledge of nutrition. And there is a reason for that. Now I want to show you why in this next slide. This is a part of the problem. Only about 20%, that's 1/5, of U.S. medical schools require a dedicated course in nutrition. And most students receive less than 20 hours of nutrition education in their entire medical training. And so also in the last video that we looked at, 90% of cardiologists, these are the doctors that deal with the heart, said they received little to no training on nutritional education. And if heart disease is the #1 killer in the USA, and cardiologists are receiving very little education on nutrition, how well do you think they can educate their patients as to the things that they should be doing to avoid heart disease? They can't. And I want to say this. For many of these doctors, to a degree, it's not their fault. Because many of them went to school, and they're just simply learning what they were taught at school. And if the medical schools are not making nutrition education an important thing, then in the mind of the doctor, it's not going to be considered an important thing. And so this is one of the reasons why, if you're going to be the CEO of your own health, it's an extremely important thing to begin to start to educate yourself. And that's where that specific study comes from, the Arizona Center for Investigative Reporting. Here's another thing that's a part of the problem. There was a bill introduced by California state legislator to mandate nutritional education for physicians, and that bill was killed by the California Medical Association. They tried to introduce law to say, hey, we want doctors to get more training so that their education as it relates to nutrition gets better. And in the state of California, they killed that bill so that it wouldn't have to happen. That was in the year 2015. We are in 2025, and guess what? That bill is still killed. So those doctors are still not being required to take continuing education to deepen their understanding of nutrition, which means you, my friends, must be the one that educates yourself as it relates to nutrition so that you are providing your bodies with the very best resources so that they can do the very best job for you. Let's continue on. Now, last night, we were looking at something called the blue zones. And I believe that in the blue zone, specifically the one in Loma Linda, California, where the Seventh-day Adventists are located, they are the longest living Americans. I believe that this community of people provide the solution to many of the health problems that are in the USA. And why do they have the solution? Well, because they're getting it from a great source. You know where that source is? We talked about it last night. Where are they getting the source of their healthcare plan? Where are they getting it from? They're getting it from the Bible. In Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2, God gave mankind a health care plan that if mankind will follow, health will be the result. And we took a look at those 10 laws of health last night, which are the basis of the CEO's working document, if you will, to help themselves to be educated as to the best things that they should do to improve not only their own health, but the health of their family. All right, let's look at our first question that's on the board, and I'm going to ask you guys, where did this statement come from? Does this statement come from sickness, or does this statement come from health? The statement on the screen says, feast on tomatoes as much as you like, but be sure to toss out those little annoying seeds. They can damage your heart. How many of you guys think that is a statement from health? All right. How many of you guys think that's a statement from sickness? By a show of hands. All right. right, for those of you who raised your hand for sickness, you are absolutely correct. Tomatoes are actually protective against heart attacks. One of the reasons is because of the yellow fluid which surrounds the seeds. The fluid actually concentrates a compound that suppresses platelet activation, and platelets are what help to trigger the blood clots that actually cause heart attacks and most strokes. So eat tomatoes, my friends. Let's watch this next video that prepares the way for our discussion on the next law of health.
Like all other tissues in the body, the heart muscle needs oxygen-rich blood to function. The coronary arteries, which are wrapped around the heart, fill that need. In some conditions, fat can build up along the walls of the coronary arteries, reducing the supply of oxygen to the heart muscle. This buildup is called atherosclerosis. The three major risk factors of atherosclerosis are high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and smoking. This plaque can tear, causing the body's emergency repair system to rally. Blood components called platelets stick to the fat that is now exposed by the tear, forming a clot. The clot can completely block the blood supply downstream to the heart. Within a few minutes, muscle cells in the heart begin to die. This is a heart attack. The heart keeps beating but starts to lose its normal rhythm. If a larger part of the heart is affected, it can stop beating entirely. This is called cardiac arrest. Despite common misconceptions, a guy grabbing his chest and falling to the ground is not the typical presentation of a heart attack. Some people do experience the classic Hollywood heart attack, but the truth is, the symptoms of a heart attack can be much more subtle. Many heart attacks begin with only mild discomfort in the chest that intensifies over time. Other symptoms include pain in one or both arms, the neck, or the abdomen. Shortness of breath may accompany the pain, along with unexplained sweating. Time is critical in treating a heart attack. The condition can be totally reversible if diagnosed and treated early. Irreversible damage begins within 30 minutes of blockage, and half of deaths occur in the first 4 hours after symptoms begin.
So this is just some information to discuss some of the signs that precipitate a heart attack and some of the things that can be a part of the cause. And there were 3 top causes that were listed, and one of those was high cholesterol. And you remember, we already discussed that. There are top sources right here in America where we get our cholesterol from, and most of that comes from our diet. Is that correct? And so if we want to lower our risk for heart disease or heart attacks, then we want to lower our consumption of cholesterol, because what ends up happening, because most of the cholesterol that we're getting are from very high fat foods, and as you saw in the video, as that fat begins to build up in that artery over time, what ends up happening is it blocks the, as it was mentioned, tears can happen, and then the little platelets come, and as the fat is narrowing the entrance where that blood is coming through, not only is that causing you to also have high blood pressure as well, because your heart is having to pump even harder to get the blood through your vessels because they are so clogged, which means that if we lessen that, good health can be the result. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can do that. So let's move to our first law: trust more, stress less. Now, there is a wonderful doctor called Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And he wrote a book called Prevent, but not only prevent, but what? Reverse heart disease. And on the left, you'll notice, let's see if I can get this to behave. I don't know if I will, but on the left, number B, that is actually a left artery that is deep, it's compromised. But after putting people for 32 months on a plant-based diet, notice side B, it actually reversed just within 32 months from putting a person on a plant-based diet, which is the exact diet that God had given mankind at the beginning of time. And because it was a perfect world, it was the most perfect menu for man to subsist from. And science has been proving that. Now, let's look at the first principle of trust more, stress less. Chronic stress elevates blood pressure and actually rises what? Cholesterol, and accelerates plaque buildup, significantly increasing risk for heart attacks and strokes. So this is something to realize, that when we can lower our stress, it's actually one of the things that can actually help to lower our cholesterol levels, as well as the excessive inflammation that actually helps with the buildup of plaque, which is a precursor to actually having a stroke and heart attacks. And that's the citation on the next screen. You can see for that bit of information. Let's look at another thing with learning to trust more, stress less. Stress levels are linked with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And you see the citation for that. Let's watch this quick video before we move on to our next segment.
Well, studies linking poor sleep and the risk of cardiovascular disease are not necessarily new, but in most cases, older patients with increased risks were the focus. Well, this newest study found the danger is real for young, healthy people missing just 3 consecutive nights of 8 hours of sleep. The new sleep study focused on 16 healthy young subjects with good sleep habits. Their meals and activity levels were strictly controlled in a sleep lab. In one session, the subjects got 8 hours of sleep for 3 consecutive nights. In the other session, they only slept for about 4 hours each night. Researchers measured 90 proteins in the blood. They found inflammation that can lead to heart attacks, strokes, and blood vessel damage rose after the 3 sleepless nights.
Our adrenal glands will kick in and will release cortisol and stress hormone, that if the body is basically bathed in over time, it's going to have long-term cardiovascular and other effects.
Doctors say the study shows how important getting enough sleep is for cardiovascular health, even early in life. Another key finding in the study, exercising. It definitely helped lower risk factors in the blood for heart health in the sleep-deprived. That said, doctors don't recommend exercise as a replacement for sleep.
It kind of makes sense that as a short-term strategy, you might combat sleep deprivation with some light exercise, though I wouldn't put that in its place, obviously.
Now, in case you were wondering, the recommended amount of sleep for adults is at least 7 hours each day. Doctors say, yes, you can power through in demanding times here and there, but as a long-term strategy, 3 days in a row with limited sleep, it's not only bad for heart health, it's even bad for mental health as well.
So again, we're looking at the CEO's laws of health and the importance that they have in helping not only to prevent, but also to be able to reverse disease. And so we saw, not only does learning to stress less have an impact on your heart health, getting a good night's rest is also something that has an impact on heart health as well. So, sleep deprivation is directly tied to an increase in what? Cholesterol, which is an unhealthy thing. If we have it in excess, it's an unhealthy thing for the heart. So that's one of the ways in which you can lower your cholesterol, is by getting a good night's rest. Another interesting fact on sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation is linked to many heart disease risk factors, including high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol and triglycerides, increased stress hormones, and systematic inflammation, which all contribute to cardiovascular disease. You know, I mentioned this yesterday, that the laws work hand in hand together. They work with each other. And so, but they also can work against each other as well. So you'll notice here that when you don't get good rest, it increases your stress hormones. And so then you're getting a double whammy. Not only is the sleep deprivation increasing your cholesterol levels, it's also increasing the stress hormones, which increases your cholesterol, which increases inflammation in the body, which is one of the precursors to, or risk factor, better yet, let me say, for heart disease. So getting a good night's rest is an important thing as well. And if you look in your handouts, there is a CEO success tip for each of the nights on how to get just a little bit better rest. Let's move on to the next law of health. So, we'll bypass this. Well, I'll mention one thing very quickly, very, very quickly. When I was a little bit younger than I am now, I was a night owl. I loved staying up late. I mean, it came so natural to me. But actually, one of the hormones that actually helps you to go to sleep starts to get released around 9 p.m. at night. And there is something else that gets released around 2 a.m. in the morning, which is the body's growth hormone. And that hormone is absolutely important for beginning to start to heal the body, which means if you are repetitively staying up late at night, that growth hormone is actually not being released, which means that your body is not getting the healing that it needs. The body does so many wonderful things that you sleep. Did you know that your brain detoxes while you're sleeping? There's something called the glymphatic system. And what it does is it begins to start to flush your brain with this fluid. And as it flushes your brain with this fluid, it actually begins to start to remove toxins and waste out of your brain, which it does not do effectively if we're not getting a good night's rest, which means that even our cognitive functions in the morning can be affected when we're not getting the best sleep. Let's move on to sunshine. Low vitamin D, which is, disappeared there. Come back on the screen. There we go. Low vitamin D, which is below 75 nanomoles, increases the risk of cardiovascular disease by 38% and all-cause mortality by 64%, while every 10 nanomolecules increases in vitamin D reduces cardiovascular risk by 8.2%. Basically, that's saying the lower your levels of vitamin D, the higher your risk, not only for cardiovascular disease, but the higher your risk for all-cause mortalities. But just those slight increases of nanograms of vitamin D in your blood, it actually reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease by every 10%. Every 10 nanograms in your bloodstream of vitamin D reduces your cardiovascular risk by 8.2%. Now, today we understand the role that vitamin D plays in cardiac function better than any other time in the past. Vitamin D synthesis is optimal through sunshine, and cholesterol in the blood is converted into pre-vitamin D and either used or stored in the liver. Studies have been shown to demonstrate a 30% to 50% high rate of disease and death from cardiovascular disease in people living in areas which receive less sunshine exposure due to the shorter days that result from changes in season and latitude. This coincides with other studies which report cardiac deaths to be the highest during winter months and at higher altitudes. Where sunshine is plentiful, such as the Mediterranean coast and southern versus northern Europe, incidence of heart disease is the what? The lowest. There's one thing I want to take from this statement. In order for vitamin D to be synthesized, as let's say you're out in the sun, you're doing a little sunbathing, what does it take in order to synthesize vitamin D? What does it take out the bloodstream? Cholesterol, which is one of the risk factors when you have too much of it in your system for heart disease. So even you see how I told you the laws work hand in hand with each other? The body will take cholesterol out of your bloodstream when you're in the sun so that it can help to synthesize vitamin D, which means the less cholesterol you have in the system, the less buildup that you will have in your body, and the less will be your risk for heart disease. Let's look at our next Q&A. Don't eat too many Brazilian nuts. They cause toxicity. Does this statement come from sickness? Let me see some hands. You guys think this statement comes from sickness, or does it comes from sickness? Show of hands. Let me see your hands. All right. How many of you guys think this statement comes from health? All right, let's take a look on the next screen. In one study, they found that just 4 Brazil nuts lowers your LDL cholesterol. Now, LDL is the bad cholesterol in your system. There is another cholesterol called HDL, and that is actually the good cholesterol, which removes the bad cholesterol out of your system. So just 4 Brazilian nuts lowers LDL cholesterol levels up to 20 points in just 9 hours after eating a single serving between 1 and 8 nuts. And numbers stayed down even 1 month after. Just from eating what? Brazil nuts can actually help to lower the bad cholesterol in your system. You see, this information is invaluable to a CEO that wants to be a good CEO over his health. Let's move on to nutrition. Ultra-processed foods compose up to 70% of the U.S. diet and are strongly linked to heart disease. High ultra-processed food intake is associated with a 17% greater cardiovascular disease risk, 23% greater coronary heart disease risk, and 9% greater stroke risk compared with low intake of ultra-processed foods. And we've already talked about what some of those ultra-processed foods, they're the ultra-processed foods that I pretty much grew up on. It's all the stuff I loved eating when I was growing up, the cupcakes. I used to love me some Captain Crunch and all of those things that I loved eating when I was growing up were some of those ultra-processed foods that are not the best for you, and they are linked to those different risk factors. And there's the citation for that one. Moving on. The World Health Organization estimates that cardiovascular disease causes 17.9 million deaths globally each year with unhealthy diets, and that unhealthy diets, in parentheses, that which is high in salt, high in sugar, and saturated fats were among the top behavioral risk factors for cardiovascular disease. And there's the citation that you find for that. Exercise. Looking at exercise, a 2025 study from the Cooper Center longitudinal study found that exercising between 1 to 6 times the guidelines recommended amount, which is 150 minutes per week, moderate, or for 75 minutes for vigorous per week, is ideal for heart health. Exercising more than 6 times the minimum did not further reduce coronary artery disease risk, highlighting the importance of balanced activity levels. So basically, what they were looking at in this study is that, you know, the recommended activity guidelines for moderate was 150. If a person did between 1 to 6 times the guidelines, then it was ideal for heart health. But if they went too much above, it actually did not bestow any good heart health for them. And so it's good to have it in balance. You want to make sure that you don't overdo it. And there's the citation for that. Let's move on to the law of water. See, somebody's getting their water. That's good. Drinking 5 or more glasses of water daily versus 2 or fewer was associated with a 41 to 54% lower risk of fatal coronary heart disease, independent of other lifestyle factors. Now, water is an extremely important thing for heart health, and one of the reasons why is, do you know what water does to the blood? It thins it, which allows for your blood to flow much easier through your system so the heart doesn't have to work as hard. But most of us, we don't drink enough water. Most of us get our liquids from coffee and soda. And actually, just an interesting fact, something to keep in mind, is that caffeine actually dehydrates you. So you got to drink even more water if you want to compensate for what you end up losing. And so water is an extremely important thing because it helps the blood to flow much better through the system. Let's look at this quick video. Actually, no, we're going to bypass this. I'm going to bypass this. We're going to go to our next question. Choose agave sugar as a healthy alternative to the refined sugars. How many of you guys think this statement comes from sickness? Choose agave sugar as a healthy alternative to the refined sugars. How many of you guys think this statement comes from sickness? All right, see a couple hands. How many of you guys think this statement comes from health? All right, let's find out. It actually comes from sickness. Agave sugar is almost as refined as white refined crystallized sugar. And so don't let them fool you with that one. There are actually alternatives that are much better for you, such as in moderation, such as coconut sugar. Coconut sugar is actually a very good sugar for you because it's not as refined as other ones are. All right, let's move to...
Where does honey fit in that?
Honey fit into that? Honey isn't a bad... honey actually has... it is packed full of different nutrients, antimicrobial, antiviral. Matter of fact, they found honey in the tombs of the mummies that were still good 4,000 years later, because honey it naturally is antimicrobial. So it actually it keeps microbes from growing in there, which would cause it to go bad. So honey's good, but again, in moderation. Let's look at the law of living temperately. Consuming added sugar, those put into foods and drinks during processing, like sodas and desserts, is strongly linked to a higher risk of death from cardiovascular disease among adults. And most of the processed foods that people consume have it very high in sugar. And it's no wonder that America is sick. Much of it is coming from our food system and also from the lack of exercise and other things that we could be doing in better quantities that would be for our health. All right. The law of fresh air. Air pollution is actually linked to an increased risk of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular mortality. Reductions in air pollution levels have been associated with fewer hospitalizations for heart disease. I'm telling you, all of these laws work together for the better of our health. Another one, public health agencies linked, moving too quick, sorry. Public health agencies like the CDC and Harvard School of Public Health emphasize air quality improvement as a critical strategy to reduce the cardiovascular disease burden globally. So this is one of the things that they're recommending in order to improve cardiovascular disease. One of the things they're talking about dealing with is the air pollution, which one of the benefits, if you have the opportunity, is living in an area where there's much less pollution and much more trees, because more trees that there are, the more that those trees will actually take that out of the air and replace it with oxygen, which I will say that's one of the things that is very beautiful about the state of Georgia. Going to Atlanta, sometimes it's like you're in a city full of trees, which is a beautiful thing. Last law, educate yourself. Longer, healthier lifespans, higher educational attainments correlate with lower lifetime cardiovascular disease risk. Longer periods without disease and compressions of morbidity. Better education supports healthier behaviors, improved healthcare access, and social resources, all contributing to heart-healthy longevity. And there's the citation for that. Educating yourself promotes early detection and intervention. Education helps people recognize warning signs and encourages timely health screening. Early diagnosis leads to more effective management and fewer complications, preventing heart attacks and strokes. In other words, one of the benefits of even the fact that you're here and educating yourself with this information helps you to be able to make better decisions, because the better the information that you have access to, the better the decisions that you make. The better the decisions that you make, the better the health outcomes that you'll have. So you're actually in the right place. Here's what I leave you with tonight, my friends. Very last slide. In your handout, in the very back, you'll notice, I think it's the third to last page, there's a one thing commitment. And what I would like for you guys to do, not necessarily right now, but when you go home tonight, I want you guys to write down what is one thing of the 10 laws that we have discussed tonight that you want to begin to start to put into practice this week. Just one thing. What's one thing? Whether it's water, whether it's exercise. In beginning to do just that one thing this week, you will begin to start to make an improvement on your health. Did you guys learn something tonight? Yes. Awesome. I'm glad that you did. And remember our tagline, practice habits that spark change. Awesome. If you guys enjoyed the information that you learned tonight, please bring a friend tomorrow. I have some friends that I spoke to today that let me know they will be here tomorrow. I hope you will do the same so that we can share this wonderful information that we've been learning with each other. God bless you guys. There will be refreshments again tonight in the same room that you guys were last night. God bless you guys.